eat as much as you want. You can eat food until you feel full, but you are only allowed to eat specific types of food. So in the top on the left, it said those patients were only allowed to eat low protein, high glycemic index foods. Now, high glycemic indexes, you may very well know, are food that when you put it in your mouth, it goes into your stomach and it turns into sugar very quickly. So if you take table sugar, cane sugar, and you put it in your mouth, you swallow it down, that sugar is going to go into your bloodstream very quickly. And we call that 1. That's the glycemic index of 1. Okay? But it turns out, if you take a potato and you swallow the potato down, that potato turns into sugar at the same rate as you would have had if you take cane sugar. Okay? So the glycemic index of a potato is also approximately 1, and the same is true for bread. But if you take a piece of broccoli and you actually swallow that piece of broccoli down, that broccoli has to go through the gut, and the gut sort of works on it and sort of starts to break it down, and it takes a long time for that piece of broccoli to turn into sugar. So when we actually talk about high glycemic index carbohydrates, we refer to things like pasta and bread and potatoes and rice. And when we talk about low glycemic index carbohydrates, and people forget that vegetables are carbohydrates, we talk about things that are green and yellow and orange and purple and red. Okay? So the vegetables that have a bright color, they are the ones that's called low glycemic index, they are the good ones. And the vegetables that are white and brown, they are the high glycemic index carbohydrates, and they are the bad ones. And the reason why they're bad is because they go into the gut, they turn into sugar, and they do not send a signal to the brain. But if you actually have a vegetable that has a bright color, it actually goes in and it actually sends a signal to the brain to allow you to feel full before it turns into sugar. But what we did with that study is we showed that if you give people low protein and high glycemic index diet, effectively if you feed them pasta, they regain all the weight that they have lost. If you however give them different variations, you can see you can change that, but the best treatment, and this randomized controlled study that was published in New England Journal, is a high protein, low glycemic index food. And that's exactly what you have in most of your products. It's a higher protein, lower glycemic index foods that allows people to feel full and therefore not only make them lose weight, but maintain the weight loss in the long term. Now often you are asked, but how about the sugar content that you actually see in some of your products? It's important to understand that sugar is not the same as glycemic index, and what we mean with that is that the stomach acts as a reservoir. So if you, for example, eat food, your stomach can decide how quickly it will allow that food to go into your gut. Because remember, it's only in your gut, in your small bowel, that the sugars can be absorbed, etc. We don't absorb food from our stomachs. Our stomachs is just like a washing machine that sort of helps us sort of mix things together and help with the breakdown. But the stomach at the bottom has a valve, and this valve can either open slowly or it can open quickly. Now it turns out that if you actually, as I said, take a potato, you eat a potato, that potato is going to go swish into the small bowel and going to turn into sugar. But if you take that potato and you put a big piece of cheese on top of it, right, and you eat your potato with cheese, then what happens is the potato goes into the stomach recognizes the cheese and it holds it back. And it goes swish, 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 and it actually allows small amounts out at the same time. So you can turn a potato from a high glycemic index food into a lower glycemic index food. But what has happened with a lot of the products that you have available, that has already been done. Because of the high protein content, and also sometimes because of the good quality fats that's been added, The food goes into the stomach and is released very slowly into the small bowel, and therefore it optimizes. Even if there are sugars inside, it actually allows it to come out slowly. Now, the sugars also play another important role, that it makes it palatable. It makes it possible for people to have it for the rest of their life. Because I already said to you, you have to have the meal replacements for the rest of your life if you want to maintain the weight loss in the long term. Now, what happens if we just ask people to eat the same number of calories, but we give them whole food, versus the same number of calories where we give them a mixture of whole food and meal replacements? And what you would find in this randomized controlled study done by Dr. Fletcher, you can see that those patients that actually have the meal replacements plus the whole food lose more weight than the people who only had the whole foods as part of their diet. So can protein supplementation during weight loss improve outcomes and maintain lean body mass? This study was done showing what happens to the percentage fat loss if you give them the same calories but predominantly from carbohydrates or from protein. And you can see if you have a higher protein content, you lose a better percentage of fat mass to lean body mass. So what people don't want to do is lose muscle. Now, if you lose a large amount of weight, you're going to lose some muscle. But you want to limit that loss. And one way to do it is to actually make sure the protein content, and again, that is what you would have in your products. This is another study where 20 people were randomized, so their names were pulled out of the hat, and some of them had a low-fat diet with protein content, either 50% or 30%. And you can see, although the diets gave effectively the same amount of weight loss, the higher protein group reported more satiety. They reported that they felt full for longer. Because remember that many of you may have gone on a diet in the past, or know people that have gone on a diet, and they will tell you that when you're on a diet, and really when you're trying to lose weight and you are losing a lot of weight, you become obsessed with food. You can't think about anything except food. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you can think of what you're going to eat today. Right? That's not a healthy state of being, and you cannot sustain that for a very long period of time. So therefore, allowing people to lose weight, but giving them satiety so that they do not become obsessed with food is incredibly helpful. And in this study, what they showed is by giving the higher protein, low-fat food versus the high carbohydrate, low-fat food, we were able to measure that the satiety in these people, as they reported it, was better. My biggest problem when I work in my clinic is that lots of patients come to us and say, look, I've lost all this weight and then I regained it all. You know, I was yo-yo dieting. So I lost 10 kilograms and now I've gained that 10 kilograms back, but it brought 2 of its friends with it, and now I'm 2 kilograms heavier than I started. And we always say that that's something that's not good for the body. So there will be some way to regain. If you make, even if we do operations on people and they lose a third of their body weight, they will regain a small amount of weight over the next 5 or 10 years. And that's okay. We also have to say to people, you know, regaining a small amount of weight, 1 or 2 kilograms, that's not a car smash. And, you know, it's not a failure. They didn't do anything wrong. But if we have the higher protein content, we can reduce the amount of weight regain that can happen. So I'm going to summarize and say what we need is balanced nutrition. We need a combination of protein, and we would say, you know, up to 30% protein, 40% carbohydrates, of which we would suggest most of them come from vegetables that have a bright color, but also about 30% of fat. That's sort of a balanced diet. But then what you are now able to do, and it's actually an amazing public health intervention that you are doing, meaning you're actually helping people to become healthier and wellness, for them to feel better. Normal people you're making better. And the way you can do that is by also adding in, for example, the omega-3s, having less saturated fats, adding more fiber, but then actually building on that even further, where you have the exercise, the hydration, and the rest. So what you are able to do is not only, talk about products, but actually talk about the program, and actually understanding how a program can help people in 5 and 10 years from now remain healthy and actually improve their overall health. So I'm going to stop there and just to thank the people that I work with, and also to thank you as an audience for being so kind. Thank you very much.